Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty powerful today.
Oh, yeah.
Excerpts from Dr. Mame Afua Nakib's book, Speak Up, Speak Out.
Such a good one.
It's all about finding your voice.
Yeah.
And using it to advocate for yourself and others.
You know, it's amazing. The book actually draws these parallels between modern challenges and a story from ancient Israel. The Daughters of Zelophehad.
Really?
A story of courage, strategy, and it still has lessons for us, even today.
So our mission today is to extract those practical strategies, those insights.
Yes.
So that you listening can walk away knowing how to speak up effectively, especially when it comes to injustice.
Absolutely.
We'll be looking at historical examples, contemporary examples, and Dr. Nakib's own personal journey.
What's really fascinating is how she brings her own experiences into it.
Yeah.
Her personal story. She faced a lot of adversity, actually, both in Ghana, where she was born and raised.
Wow.
And then again when she moved to the UK in 2014.
She talks about facing gender inequality in Ghana and then racial discrimination when she moved to the UK.
You know, it's a reminder that injustice can have so many faces. And she's so open about sharing some, well, eye-opening incidents.
I bet.
Like, there's one where she was asked if people in Africa live in trees.
Seriously?
I know, right?
Wow. That just exposes a level of ignorance that's hard to believe.
Makes you think about all those hidden assumptions we all have, you know?
Right.
And how they can impact others. For Dr. Nakib's, it really ignited something in her.
Yeah.
These experiences, along with many others, they became this driving force behind her passion for diversity and inclusion. She realized that finding her voice and challenging those assumptions, it wasn't just important, it was crucial.
And she's now dedicated to helping others find theirs too.
Exactly. She founded LimLab Consult Ltd.
Wow.
And through it, she works with universities and businesses.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Training them, showing them how to create truly inclusive workplaces.
It's incredible she's taking her experience and creating real-world change with it. Okay, so let's dive into the heart of the book. The Daughters of Zelophehad.
Yes.
Ancient Israel, a deeply patriarchal society. And these 5 sisters who were about to lose their inheritance just because they didn't have a male heir.
Right.
Can you paint a picture of what was at stake for them?
Oh, absolutely. Their father passes away.
Okay.
And according to the law at the time, their land, their whole family's future should have gone to a male relative. But these women weren't having any of it.
Oh,
They went straight to the top.
Wow.
Bypassed any channels that probably would shut them down.
Right.
And they went directly to Moses and the leaders of Israel.
I mean, talk about guts. That's incredible.
It's amazing. But here's where it gets really interesting. They didn't just show up and complain.
Right.
They were strategic about it. They understood the power of knowledge and preparation. They knew the laws. They prepared their case. It shows how being smart can be as important as being brave.
I like that. It's like having your law, that piece of knowledge backing up your position when you're advocating for yourself or for others.
Absolutely.
So if you're facing a similar situation where you need to speak up, what's your law?
Yeah.
What information can you arm yourself with?
And they also understood the power of the platform, the right moment.
Yeah.
They presented their case at the tent of meeting.
Okay.
A place of significant authority where big decisions were made.
Right.
They were savvy. They knew how to approach this.
Smart.
And it paid off big time.
I bet.
They got their inheritance. And get this, because of what they did, God changed the law.
Whoa.
It set a precedent for women's property rights.
Really? That's huge.
It's an incredible example of how speaking up can actually lead to system change.
But you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Dr. Nakib's uses this story to illustrate the power of courage, right? Especially when we're up against injustice, because speaking up can be so scary.
It can.
Think about a time you wanted to say something, but you held back.
Yeah.
What stopped you?
I think we've all been there.
For sure.
But Dr. Nakib's doesn't just leave us there with our fears.
Wow.
She lays out some strategies for cultivating courage.
It starts with acknowledging that fear is a natural response.
Okay.
Then she talks about connecting to your cause. The why behind wanting to speak up, that passion, that's what fuels you.
It's not just about being brave. It's about believing in something bigger than yourself.
Right. And just like the Daughters of Zelophehad, preparation is key.
Yeah.
Knowing your facts, building your case, that gives you confidence. She also talks about support.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Your allies.
Yeah.
Because going it alone is so hard.
It is. It's so much easier to have people who understand what you're going through to champion you.
Absolutely. She talks about building that courage muscle.
Okay.
Start small. Practice speaking up in everyday situations.
Mm-hmm.
Low stakes things.
So it's not about just flipping a switch and suddenly being fearless.
Right.
It's about practice, building up that confidence over time.
Exactly. She also talks about visualizing success.
Interesting.
Really picture yourself speaking up and how good it feels to have that power. And even if things don't go perfectly, she says to view those as learning experiences.
Because sometimes I think that fear of not getting it right, messing up, it can be paralyzing.
It can.
So she's saying even if it's not perfect, it's progress.
To drive that point home, she brings in all these examples of courageous people throughout history, like Malala Yousafzai, who risked her life to fight for girls' education.
Amazing. Or Rosa Parks, refusing to give up her seat on that bus.
And Greta Thunberg, challenging world leaders on climate change.
So inspiring.
They all show us that one voice can spark a movement.
It's true that one voice can make a difference. And speaking of joining forces, Dr. Niqabs highlights the power of unity in creating change. She quotes this African proverb, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together."
I love that proverb.
It's like she was channeling the Daughters of Zelophehad.
It is. There weren't just 5 individuals complaining. They were a united front. Their solidarity gave them power and made them impossible to ignore.
It shows how much strength there is in numbers,
It really does.
We see this everywhere in history, like the civil rights movement.
Yes.
The women's suffrage movement.
Absolutely.
And even today, like the climate justice movement.
Yeah.
Collective action is powerful.
Right. And it lends so much credibility because it shows that this isn't just one person's issue. It's a shared concern. It's a collective voice demanding to be heard.
It's not just about the number of people, though, is it?
No, not
It's the different perspectives, the different skills and experiences.
Oh, yeah.
When you have all that brain power, you can approach a problem from all these different angles, come up with innovative solutions.
And there's the emotional and moral support that comes with being in a group.
Yeah.
Advocacy can be hard.
It can.
Exhausting to have people to lean on who get it.
To celebrate with.
Makes such a difference.
For sure. And, Dr. Niqabs doesn't pretend it's easy.
Yeah.
She's clear. Passion is not enough.
You need to be prepared.
Yeah.
You need knowledge.
It's like she's saying, look, if you want to make real change, you need to bring your A game.
Exactly.
Passion is important, but knowledge and effective communication are what really create change.
I agree. And taking action, even when you are prepared, can still be scary. So she uses her own experience to show us how she faced those fears.
Right.
And how she found her voice.
Let's go back to those experiences she had after moving to the UK.
Sure.
That new kind of discrimination she faced. Racial discrimination.
Yeah, she's really vulnerable in the book.
She is.
And it's not just about her. She talks about the countless stories she heard from other people who had experienced similar prejudice. It really paints a picture of what so many people face every day.
There's one story in Newcastle, I think, that just struck me. She's just walking down the street, and someone stops her and asks her if people in Africa live in trees.
It's hard to fathom, right?
It is.
That someone could actually believe that.
Yeah, it's like those biases, even the ridiculous ones, they still exist. And they impact people's lives.
They do.
There's another story, too, at a McDonald's. She sat down next to this white family.
Yeah.
And they immediately grabbed their food and moved.
Oh, wow.
It's just dehumanizing.
It is, and it shows how those subtle biases, even unconscious ones, I think, contribute to this culture of exclusion. It's not just about the obvious racism.
Right.
It's those little everyday things that chip away at your sense of belonging.
Makes you wonder how often that kind of thing happens,
Right. And she talks about how she felt powerless at first.
I bet.
Not sure how to respond, like wanting to stay quiet, avoid more conflict. And I think so many of us can relate to that.
We can.
Especially when you're already feeling vulnerable.
Is it even worth it?
Yeah.
Will it make a difference? Or will it just make things worse?
Exactly. But what's so inspiring about her story is she didn't stay silent.
Right.
She found her voice, and she used it.
That's incredible. And her journey from feeling silenced to becoming an advocate,
Yeah.
it makes her book so powerful.
Yeah.
You know, she's not just talking about it theoretically.
Right.
She's lived it. She gets it. She understands that struggle.
Absolutely. And she found inspiration in the Daughters of Zelophehad, a story from thousands of years ago, helping her to face those modern challenges.
Interesting.
It gave her a sense of, I think, historical grounding.
Okay.
This connection to a lineage of strong women who dared to speak up. If they could do it back then, she could do it now.
Right.
That fight for justice,
Yeah.
it's long and it's ongoing.
It is.
And it's not just about our own empowerment, is it?
It's not.
We have a responsibility to advocate for others, too, for those who are being silenced.
And that's ultimately what led her to start her own company.
It is. Linglab Consult Ltd. It's amazing how she took those experiences and made something good out of them.
Turned them into a force for change.
It really shows her resilience
and commitment
to making the world a better place. Through Linglab Consult Ltd. She's helping organizations make their workplaces more inclusive, where everyone feels valued and respected.
Like she's taking the lessons of the daughters and applying them on a larger scale.
Exactly.
So going back to the daughters, what was it about their approach that made them so successful? I mean, we've talked about their courage, their unity,
right?
But was there something more?
They understood the system they were in. They knew the rules of the game. They did their research, knew the laws, and they used all of that to make a really strong argument.
So it wasn't just about demanding things.
No, they had a well-built case.
They were prepared.
And they also chose their moment carefully, right? The tent of meeting. A place where decisions were made.
Makes sense.
They knew how important that was.
Rhyming is everything.
It is. And they weren't afraid to challenge how things were done, even if it seemed radical at the time.
Right.
And ultimately, they helped so many women because of it.
It shows the importance of having a good strategy, being thoughtful.
Oh, for sure.
And Dr. Nekabs gives a whole framework for developing a strategic plan, right?
He does. It starts with identifying the people who can actually create change. Who are the decision makers?
Yeah, who's the Moses in your situation?
Exactly.
That makes sense.
And then it's understanding how power works. Knowing how to navigate those systems. Because sometimes just having a good argument isn't enough.
You have to know where to take it.
Right.
And then there's crafting your message. Dr. Nekabs really emphasizes using facts. Hard evidence to back up your claims.
And she also talks about the power of stories.
Oh, yeah. Stories are powerful.
They are. Connecting with people on an emotional level.
Right.
Making them really care about your cause. And she also says, use as many ways to get your message out there as possible.
Oh, yeah.
Not just one platform. Social media, traditional media.
Public speaking.
Yes. Community organizing, anything you can think of.
It's about spreading that message, reaching as many people as you can.
And using different strategies to do it.
Right.
She uses the Black Lives Matter movement as an example.
Oh, interesting.
They were so successful at using all kinds of tactics to raise awareness. And to push for change.
Really shows how effective that multifaceted approach can be.
It does. But it's not just strategy and tactics either, right?
Right.
She talks about the inner qualities that make us good advocates, like courage, persistence, and being willing to learn as we go. She acknowledges that this work can be hard.
It is.
There are going to be setbacks.
For sure.
And she gives us a way to deal with that, to build resilience.
Okay.
She talks about remembering your why, you know, why you're doing this in the first place.
Right.
And remembering that failures are just opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
She encourages a growth mindset. You know, see those challenges as a way to get better.
That's a good point.
And take care of yourself.
Oh, yeah. Self-care is important.
It is. You can't help others if you're burned out.
Right. It's like she's saying, you know, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And she says to celebrate the little wins, too.
Because it's easy to get discouraged. Focus on what's not working.
Yeah, but those little wins.
They can keep us going.
Right. And she reminds us that we're not alone. There are so many people out there doing the same thing.
Fighting the same fight.
Exactly.
And speaking of fighting the good fight, Dr. Nekabs also talks about leadership.
Right.
And how important it is to create change.
Yeah.
She uses Moses' response to the Daughters of Zelophehad as an example.
Yes.
Of what good leadership can look like in the face of, you know, people advocating for what they believe in.
It's so interesting because he could have just said no.
Yeah, he could have.
But he listened, showed empathy, and recognized that what was happening wasn't right. And he was willing to change things.
Even though it might have seemed radical at the time?
Yes. He embodies this idea of a leader who's not just open to new ideas, but actually seeks them out.
Right.
Values those voices that aren't always heard.
And Dr. Nekabs outlines some qualities we can all learn from that.
Yes. Qualities that are just as important today.
Like what? What stands out to you?
Well, first of all, open-mindedness.
Okay.
Being open to new ideas, challenging your own biases.
And recognizing that you don't have all the answers,
Yeah.
that other people's perspectives are important.
Absolutely. And empathy. Putting yourself in other people's shoes, you know? Trying to understand their experience.
And not just intellectual understanding,
right.
but actually feeling it.
Yeah. And then taking action.
Right.
You know, it's not enough to just listen and empathize.
You have to do something.
You have to. And that's what Moses did.
Yeah.
He took those concerns to God, and then he changed the law.
Powerful example of how leaders can use their power to do good. And these leadership qualities,
Yes.
they're not just for people in charge.
They're not.
Anyone who wants to create change can use these
Exactly.
at work, in your community, even in your own family.
They can help us build stronger relationships, work together,
For sure.
and make the world a better place.
Absolutely. Before we move on, I want to touch on one more thing.
Right.
One of the most practical parts of the book,
Okay.
her A to Z of speaking up and speaking out. It's like a cheat sheet.
It is.
Little nuggets of wisdom
So good.
for anybody who wants to make their voice heard.
I love how she breaks it down into those little steps
It's true.
because it can seem so overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
But she reminds us that it can start small.
Exactly.
Simple actions.
Can you share some of your favorites from the A to Z?
A for action, you know, just taking that first step, however small it might seem.
Right.
It's always better to do something than nothing. Yeah, it's about stepping outside that comfort zone. And then B for boldness.
Boldness.
Daring to question the norms, you know, the systems that perpetuate injustice.
Having the courage to say, hey, this isn't right.
Exactly. And of course, C for courage.
Right.
So essential. It's what pushes us forward, even when we're scared.
It's really the foundation of making change, isn't it?
It is. I also love H for hope.
Hope, yeah.
It sustains us. It's the belief that things can get better, that our actions matter.
Like that light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. And Z for zeal.
Okay.
That passion, that commitment that keeps us going.
Bringing your all to the fight.
And it's amazing to think that a story like the Daughters of Zelophehad from so long ago
Yeah.
can still inspire us today.
Shows how powerful these stories are, right?
That really does.
They remind us that we're part of something bigger. This long line of people who've spoken up for what's right.
Exactly. And it's our turn to continue that legacy.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Speak Up, Speak Out, it all comes back to this. It starts with us.
It does. We all have a part to play. And it doesn't have to be these huge things.
Right.
Sometimes it's those small everyday moments like
Yeah.
speaking up against a biased joke,
Right.
calling out a microaggression.
Offering support to someone who's being marginalized.
Yes. Those things might seem small, but they can make such a difference.
They shift the whole dynamic, you know?
They do.
Create a space where everyone feels safe, respected.
Absolutely.
So as we leave you today, here's our challenge.
Okay.
What small act of courage will you take today? What are you passionate about?
Yeah.
Where can you make a difference?
It could be at work, at home, in your community,
It can be anywhere.
even just in how you interact with people every day.
Right, because your voice matters.
It does.
And if we embrace those lessons we've talked about today, courage, unity, knowledge,
Strategy.
effective leadership,
We can make the world a better place.
a place where everyone has the chance to speak up, speak out,
Yes.
and create real change.
Absolutely.
That's it for this deep dive. We hope you've learned something.
Mm-hmm.
You feel inspired.
And ready to use your voice. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning.
And keep speaking up.
And it's incredible to think that the story of the Daughters of Zelophehad from thousands of years ago still has the power to inspire action for justice today.
Yeah, it really does.
It's a reminder that we're all part of this lineage of courageous individuals who've spoken up against injustice, and it's a call to action to continue that legacy.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Speak Up, Speak Out, I'm left with this sense of hope and possibility. You know, we've explored practical tools, inspiring stories, but it all comes back to this.
What's that?
It starts with each of us.
It really does. We all have a role to play,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be these big, grand gestures.
Right.
Or leading a movement or anything like that.
It's the small everyday things sometimes.
Yeah.
Like when you speak up against a biased joke or challenge a microaggression.
Or just offer support to someone who's being marginalized.
Exactly. Those actions might seem small.
They do.
But they can make a huge difference.
They really can. It shifts the whole dynamic.
It does.
Creates a space where everyone feels safe and respected.
Absolutely. So as we leave you today, here's a challenge for you.
Okay.
What act of courage will you take today? What injustice are you passionate about? And where can your voice make a difference?
It can be anywhere.
Yeah. At work, in your family, your community.
Even just in how you interact with people.
Right. Your voice matters.
It does. And if we embrace what we talked about today, that courage, unity, knowledge, strategy, good leadership.
We can make the world a better place. A world where everyone can speak up.
Speak out.
And create change.
Absolutely.
That's it for this deep dive. We hope you learned something, that you feel inspired.
And ready to use your voice.
Keep learning, keep questioning.
And keep speaking up.
We'll see you next time.